live?
We're live?
Well, I've got this window says it's loading, and this one says we're live. And
are we live?
live?
Mystery box?
Yeah, there we go. We are absolutely live, and we've got the chat this week. What a bonus!
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so we're doing something different this week. Jean-Marc is not able to do it, but we want to do The Mandalorian. We cannot not do The Mandalorian, so Rob and I are here to exclusively talk about The Mandalorian. And Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Adam. Really excited to talk about this. Like, it was really hard, like, because I didn't watch it like right away, like when some people did, like as soon as it got released, like stay up late and wait for it to come out. So now I'm ready to like go spoiler free. Like
we're doing spoilers. We're doing spoilers.
We're just jumping right in.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. Not having to worry about it, because that one day on Friday, like basically had to turn off my phone, not look at anything, because I knew it was going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And I came this close to getting spoiled. I don't know about you. Like you watched it right away, so you didn't have a chance to get spoiled.
I watched it right away, and I posted on Facebook right away. And I tried not to spoil it, but people in chat were spoiling it, and I'm like, guys, no, we're not. Like, I just wanted to say it was an awesome episode, but they're like, but it's an awesome episode because of Luke Skywalker, which, by the way, Luke fucking Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker. And that's what I saw people commenting online too, even people on Twitter commenting on, because I following Mark Hamill, and people were like, oh, you spoiled it. And people were like, you basically couldn't not be spoiled, because everybody's just like, Luke.
Luke. But you didn't get spoiled though, right?
No, I didn't get spoiled. I came very close to getting spoiled, but I just made it. But people were telling me like Luke was the number one trending thing on Twitter or whatever. So that was like everybody, you just saw those 4 letters, Luke.
So did you see it coming? Did you know what it was going to be?
No, I had no idea until I saw the green lightsaber. I had doubts. I was like, no way, they're not doing it. Like, that's not that, it could be any TIE fighter, or sorry, any X-Wing. I was like, there's thousands of X-Wings out there. Like, maybe that's, I don't know. I was like, and then when it was in black and white, we were talking about this, right? Like, I was like, why is there black and white, like monochrome security cameras in space? Like, you could fly faster than light, but you still have, and I don't know, whatever. So anyway, but yeah, so I was like, is it Ahsoka? And then as soon as you see the green lightsaber, and then you see the gloved hand, and you're like, that's it.
Well, here's the thing is, I don't want to brag, but I actually called this last week. Remember last week? I did. Yeah, I absolutely
did. I remember you saying that Luke's going to show up, and I was doubtful just because of, I don't know, well, a lot of reasons, but you're right.
Yeah, I was right. I was 100% right. Everything I said Grogu needs to get trained, and it's going to be Luke Skywalker that does it, and that's exactly what happened. But I had posted this on Facebook, and your cousin Anthony actually, I think he said that the rumor is online that it's Mace Windu, and that was going to train Grogu. So when that X-Wing rolls up, I'm like, oh, that's Luke Skywalker. Then I was like, no, that's a red herring, because I'm sure there's plenty of people like me that have been speculating. That's pretty cool. They're trolling us. And then you see a cloaked figure. I'm like, oh, trolling us even further. It even looks like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, trolling us even further. And then he's just fucking, and it's like, it could be Luke Skywalker. And like you said, it was in black and white. I didn't really realize until you said that. And then you see the fucking lightsaber, and it's like, that's not purple. That's a fucking green lightsaber. And it's like, oh my God, it's fucking Luke Skywalker. They're actually doing it.
Yeah, I was shocked. I'm like glad. I'm so happy it didn't get spoiled, because that would have ruined it for me almost. And like, you're right. As soon as I saw that green, I was like, oh my God, it's Luke. Yeah. And because you're right, like anybody could have. I was like, did Ahsoka Tano borrow an X-Wing from somebody? Yeah. And like, even like the thing that really tips you off is when they do the what do you call it? the recap at the beginning, it was like made you remember, okay, like Grogu was on that stone and it called out to a Jedi, and she's saying, you know, a Jedi powerful enough. There aren't too many Jedi, and that was as soon as I saw the green lightsaber, I was like, yeah, there aren't too many Jedi, especially with the green lightsaber. That's Luke.
Exactly. Yeah.
With a green lightsaber who flies an old X-wing. At that point, they're dated the Incom T65. What is it?
I don't know all this.
T65B X-wing.
I just saw an X-wing and I was like, oh, that's Luke's ship. And then like my first instinct was Luke's ship, and then I was like, oh, that's a good troll. They're trolling those of us who want it to be Luke because everyone in the galaxy could have anyone could have an X-wing. Oh, fuck, whatever. Somebody got a hold of, and then it was like, holy shit, it's Luke. So here's the thing is, and I'm sure you noticed it too. He did not say, my name is Luke Skywalker. Or, hey, I'm a Jedi. I'm Luke Skywalker. It was just he never said his name.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, there are people there who knew Anakin Skywalker, so that episode could have gone differently if he did say my last name is I'm Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's and I guess that's part of the whole thing that you have to kind of almost ignore with the whole Skywalker thing, because obviously, like, as soon as Vader found out Luke Skywalker was the one that blew up the Death Star, he's like, oh,
that's my kid.
That's probably a relative of mine, since we made up that name. Like, basically, it's not like a.
But he did know. He did know. At no point did he ever not know, right? Like, there was never a point where he didn't know. He revealed to Luke, "I'm your father." Which
that's true. I guess it's just that. Sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I guess there was that weird time in between A New Hope and Empire, where a lot of like old, like, what do you call it, like expanded universe stuff and this and that, and they almost had to justify after, because I don't know where I'm going with this. It's getting too complicated. Basically, like, there's a bunch of now canon comic books where Vader's just trying to find out who the pilot was that blew up the Death Star, right? Because he's right behind. Like, Vader was right behind him. He was a second from blowing up Luke's X-wing, right?
Yeah.
When Han and Chewie showed up and saved him, right? So he's like, who is that? And he even says, right, in A New Hope, like, the Force is strong with this one, right? He knew he had a feeling this is a good pilot. I'm almost about to blow up my son and not realizing it.
So there's a possibility that Vader didn't know in A New Hope, but figured it out by The Empire Strikes Back, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he saw, like Luke shot at Vader, right? Like, from like way across, and didn't have a chance of hitting him. Like, he hit all the stormtroopers in A New Hope and stuff. So there's a little bit of retconning, right? Because they didn't. George says that he knew, like, he had it all planned out, but he didn't.
Let me ask you this. The next thing that happens is the Mandalorian takes off his mask in this very touching moment to give Grogu away to Luke. It's interesting how everything in this series has built up to that moment, because we had seen him, this is okay, I'll make an exception here, but then he finally takes off his mask in this heartfelt moment where he definitely didn't have to in a connection with Grogu. It was interesting character development, if you really think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the two times where, and that's why Bill Burr's talk with him was so important. It was telling him, like, it's not black and white. It's not good guys and bad guys, or it's all shades of gray. Like, yeah, I was a stormtrooper, but I wasn't down for this stuff like this bad guy. And that's where, when he first revealed, right, he took off his helmet because he wanted to save Grogu. He wanted to save Baby Yoda. Mm-hmm. And so he knew at that moment, like, okay, I feel a connection with Baby Yoda. He's the one that's important to me, not being a Mandalorian anymore. The way everything else was, he realized it's secondary to that relationship, and that's why he was comfortable at that time. I don't think we're going to really see him hesitate if he has to take off his mask anymore in the future. Like, I'm not sure about that. I feel like there's been this transition now, and he's realizing the others there, they're all Mandalorians. They have no problem showing their face.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting. We will have to see, because he might keep his mask on. I don't know. It is like, by all rights, you're right. He could for the rest of the series have no qualms about taking off his mask, but it could be one of those things where it's still a sacred moment where he doesn't take off his mask that often. It's interesting, though. What I was going to say is that when we all signed up for this show and we all started out, we kind of thought we were watching a bounty hunter go on these missions, and now we've got this character who's a completely like different person. It's not about these missions that he goes on. It's about his love of Grogu. He has relationships with people. He's a completely different character now. He's less hardened.
Yeah, and it's basically turning him from that really simple-minded, almost like this is the way, that whole like this is the way that we do things, and this is how, like, basically you only care about other Mandalorians, and this is what's important in life, right? And he's had his whole ideology kind of shaken and threatened, or however you want to look at it. He basically he kind of flipped and realized what's really important, because it's really about like he's realizing that how he was trained, how he was brought up or whatever was very it's almost like what did Obi-Wan say about the Sith, that only Sith deal in absolutes, and that's how he was dealing, right?
Yeah.
He was in absolutes. He's like, this is what you do. No, I don't show my face. And he's now finding out, like, wait a second, what's really important. So.
Yeah. Well, he had a very hardened edge and has softened over it. So here's another thing about showing your face, and there is a counter to what I'm going to point out, and there's another. Let me start out by saying the Mandalorian takes off his mask. Why does he have a mustache if he's never taken off his mask?
Why is he so well groomed? That's the question. When does he have time to, like I was saying last week, basically I had the beard and I was like, hey, I'm going to go mustache today. Like, does he only grow, like, is the Mandalorians or whatever? Actually, we don't know what planet he's from. Yeah. But maybe that's all the facial hair that his species of alien could grow, is just the mustache.
And that's what I was gonna say, is the counter to that is the second time that he took it off, he didn't have the mustache, so we know he's shaving underneath that thing.
He didn't have it on this,
I didn't think he had it on the new one. He had stubble all over his face, is what I thought.
He was a little stubbled on the end of last season too. I feel like it's fairly consistent.
I don't think he had a mustache this time. I think he had the mustache the first time. Second time, he just kind of had stubble.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, he's definitely we think that he's shaving somehow. I don't know how he's doing it. We saw whenever he'd just kind of like take a drink or whatever, and we'd see Grogu. Yeah. I feel weird calling him Grogu still, but we'd see that little guy, Baby Yoda Grogu, like peek up.
Hey! Don't dead name him. He's Grogu. Don't dead name him.
I don't know. It's really hard to switch to that, and it's still weird. It just feels really weird. I don't know, Grogu.
So now we got to ask, what's the series going to be like in season 3? Some people have speculated a time skip. I think we might see The Mandalorian go on without Grogu, because it didn't always have Baby Yoda in it. He could have some episodes without Baby Yoda.
Yeah, well, Baby Yoda, like you were saying, it really humanized him, right? Like, Baby Yoda showed up at the very end of that first episode. Was it the first? No, it was the end of the third episode, or I don't know. I'm basically, remember the first thing we see is his hand, right? Baby Yoda's hand, and it kind of like humanized him when he wasn't just concerned with he didn't want to kill him like that IG-88 ripoff. I forget what number IG that one was, but it I guess it kind of goes back to what you said. Like, so next season they've kind of opened it up. He's kind of like realized what the real world is about, and like you're saying, like, I don't know, I think out of habit he's still gonna wear his mask most of the time, and it'll still just be because it's kind of like a strategy almost. Like Boba Fett didn't show anyone his face before, and he doesn't consider himself. He doesn't feel like he has to.
Well,
he doesn't.
that's an interesting thing. Is Boba Fett has kind of gone back and forth as to whether or not he's a Mandalorian, from my understanding.
Yeah, I guess what he says is my father was a Mandalorian, right? Like my father gave me this armor. And the other, it was kind of funny. The other, I'm forgetting her name. The other Mandalorians were like, well, I've heard your voice, 1,000 times. You're just a clone, like all the other ones. You're not. Like so she wasn't treating him like a real Mandalorian because he's a clone of
Bo-Katan,
Jango, right? Yeah, Bo-Katan. Thanks.
yeah.
She wasn't treating like, so they all have their own rules, right? So, the Mandalorian that we know is a foundling, right? So he's like an adopted Mandalorian. He wasn't born on Mandalore, which is what Bo-Katan is concerned with partly. But on the other hand, now I guess it brings up the whole sword issue now, right? And I don't know if you're as familiar with the Darksaber story, right? So in the quick synopsis is the first Mandalorian that was like basically trained as a Jedi, that was his sword. It was he built that Darksaber, and the Darksaber essentially turned into Excalibur. And actually the closest thing, if you're a Star Trek nerd, would be the sword of Kahless, essentially, like the Klingons ancestral sword, where you have to win that sword. Like you have to kill the previous owner of it to get it. You have to win it in battle. Basically, it's a trophy. It's it's, or like Game of Thrones. I know Jean-Marc hates it when I bring up Game of Thrones, but you have to win your crown. Like,
so basically, whoever has the sword is the ruler of the Mandalorians.
That's what some of them believe, right? Okay. It's not all of them, and that's why they're calling Bo-Katan princess, because a lot of people believe she's already she deserves it. But in the past, in Star Wars Rebels, she was handed that sword by
I've heard
Sabine
this.
Wren.
I read a little bit about this. That's what people are calling a plot hole, is that she has been handed the sword before, but she couldn't allow it to be handed to her this time.
Yeah. So the problem was last time that happened, and it wasn't the same. Like the character, her name was Sabine Wren. She's like one of the main characters on Rebels. And she basically handed it over to her and said, "You're the rightful ruler. Here's the sword." And so she was looked at as like a pretender because of that. Because she didn't win it herself. She didn't take the sword back herself. She was handed it. So now that's why I guess she should have made it more clear to the Mandalorian, because he wasn't as familiar with that rule as
no.
He had his own code, right, of the not showing the face, but he didn't know about that ideology that believes you have to win that sword in battle.
And that's why every second of this episode is well written, concise. It needs to be there every single second, because all they said was what happened. And for those who knew, and I didn't know until I saw it the second time around, it's like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. What happened is, because she wants to know, did you beat him and take the sword? Because that means fucking I gotta fight you for it. Everything about it, every fucking thing about this episode was beautifully done. And go ahead.
No, I was sorry. Go ahead.
Well, what I was gonna say is, what do you think is the next season? Because to me, my speculation is the next season is going to not have Grogu. He's going to be training, and it's going to be about this Mandalorian being the ruler of the Mandalorians, and Bo-Katan maybe possibly in a conflict about that. Maybe they're fighting alongside each other, but we know that Bo-Katan wants that role. There's some built-in friction that we can see, and we don't have to have Grogu in the next season.
Yeah, she felt like you could see it on her face. That actress Katie Sackhoff, she's awesome, and you could see just how like displeased she was when he walked in, like with the sword in his hand. Clearly, beat Moff Gideon for it, and it's interesting because he didn't care. He wasn't really interested in her battle against the Empire. He had his own kind of code that how he was going to. I don't know what his end game is for taking back Mandalore. He didn't really think that far ahead, but for him, the whole like her fight wasn't his. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like when he walked into that bar with Boba Fett, she was basically feeling like, okay, here are two bounty hunters like just fighting for them doing stuff for themselves, right? They don't really care about. They're not real Mandalorians. They're not fighting with me to save Mandalore from the Empire, right? And now she's kind of like, so she's almost gotten her wish in some ways. Like now he's in this spot where he probably doesn't really care about bounty hunting anymore, and maybe now she was trying to convince him to join her. Now maybe he's gonna convince Bo-Katan to join him.
Well, it's interesting. Like I said, I expect that the next season, at least the beginning of the next season, I mean, really, if I had to speculate on what the next season is going to be, it's probably going to be Bo-Katan and her Mandalorian. We'll probably even end up seeing more of them introduced throughout the show, are going to be aligned with this Mandalorian. I keep forgetting his actual name, what they call him. Do you know what they call him?
Oh, I'm forgetting it now.
Yeah, we'll just call him the Mandalorian. So
the Mandalorian.
They're going to be aligned with this Mandalorian, but we're going to see friction and tensions rise, and eventually, probably towards the end of the season, we're going to see a conflict between the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan, and Bo-Katan is going to challenge him for that darksaber, and we'll have to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, and I was almost thinking, like, when it was on that spot, I was almost thinking, like, here, give it back to Moff Gideon. They let her fight him for it, right there, like, just, you know. But they would probably, and it's all going back to this like political strategy where it's like, you know, if there was no witnesses and she just walked out and had that darksaber, nobody would have asked any questions. But now all these people have seen the Mandalorian carry it, so now it creates that problem. And but at the same time, this is what Mandalorians do. That's why, like, the Mandalorians are having problems before they even got involved with the rest of the universe. They fight each other, just like, you know, that's why I gave the example of the Klingons. They're a warrior species, and they just love fighting each other, fighting anyone.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask, and I don't think I have to, because I don't think there's a single person that missed this, because as soon as that episode was over, for the first time, there was no fancy art at the end of the show. But we all kind of sat in awe as just the credits rolled on, and we all just sat there processing what happened. And I had no idea there would be an after credit scene. And then all of a sudden, there's Boba Fett in not Jabba the Hutt, but who is it? Who's the guy that took over? I keep forgetting his name, but he was one of Jabba's
underlings. He was the translator, essentially, right?
Yeah, and there's Boba Fett after credits scene, and nobody missed it, because like I said, we were all sitting there and all like, yeah, there's no after credit, but like, I just got to process what the fuck did I just see with Luke, and oh, there's more.
Yeah, exactly. It was really weird because the way that it was all presented as chapters, right, of like the Mandalorian chapter, whatever this was, 16, I guess, or something. Yeah. And you're just watching it and you're like, wow. And that's exactly what it was. I just, all of a sudden I heard this noise going back to the TV. I'm like, oh my God, it's Boba Fett being like, you're sitting in my chair, guy. Like, yeah. It was pretty.
Boba the Hutt.
Boba the Hutt. Yeah. And it's interesting. I can't remember the story because there were Hutts, right? Like there was, like Jabba wasn't the only one. So I don't know if he killed the others and Jabba was the only one left that was, because when you look at it, it's kind of in the scheme of things, that's kind of Jabba's palace is kind of crappy if you're if you're like the Hutt, if you're like the only Hutt left, and that's Hutt space. And I don't know, but either way, it's kind of cool because I don't know what Boba Fett's what his goals are, like what he's looking for now, because he was always that mercenary, tricky guy, would break his word and in the old continuity, and now he has some rules, right? He pledged to help.
Some morals is what you're saying, yeah. Yeah,
he has some morals, whereas before he was just out for himself, and it's going to be interesting to see because, you know, like they didn't they let like when they took over the palace, like they let the slave girl go, and other people, you know, they're not heartless like Boba Fett used to be in the expanded universe. Like he just basically was just a bad guy, like through and through bad guy, and now he's more complicated. He's still an anti-hero, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the book of Boba Fett. It's going to be interesting in 2021, right?
Yeah, and is that supposed to be like a mini series? Is that what they're saying?
I'm guessing it's going to be another expansion of The Mandalorian. It's going to be another series.
Yeah, so there's that. I guess we should. I don't know. Should we go back and talk more about Luke? Because I feel like that's the big thing that now split. So we have all these splits of the continuity, or like it's branching off, right? So
Yeah.
so there's that. So there's that going to be that Boba Fett series. There's going to be the Ahsoka Tano.
Yep.
And then we still don't know a lot about the Marshals of the New Republic series, but that sounds like it's going to be what's her name, Carano there.
Is it?
Leading
Okay.
it?
Sure.
Maybe. It's hard to say exactly, but it seems like these are all spin-offs. Like this season was almost like pilots for all these characters, and they're just like,
Absolutely.
what do you think of Ahsoka Tano? Everybody wanted Rosario Dawson to be Ahsoka Tano from like 5 years ago or longer, probably.
Yeah. So in terms of comparing it to the MCU, the Mandalorian is sort of like Robert Downey Jr. of the MCU here.
Yeah, definitely it was, and it's opened up all these other stories that they could tell now, and it's interesting because so this is after this is a couple years after Return of the Jedi, and it's like that's to me that's a more interesting time in the Star Wars timeline than what they chose to go with the sequel trilogy, and it's going to be interesting when you look at. Adam, you really have to watch that last season of Rebels, but a lot of people are speculating. I don't know if have you heard anything of people's speculations on what's going to happen?
No. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
So a lot of people are saying they're trying to find a way, because now we're in the continuity. We're way before. We're 20 years before the sequel trilogy, essentially.
Yeah.
And so are they still going to play? Does everything still have to play out to lead to grumpy old Luke and Kylo Ren?
I think it will. I think
all the Jedi.
I think it will. I think that we know where it's going.
But that's not interesting.
Well, I think the interesting part is how do we get there?
No, nobody cares. I don't know. To me, like, I hate when I know the end of prequels. To me, aren't very interesting in general. Like, I know what's going to happen in the end, right? Like, I know Luke's going to survive. I know this is going to happen. That's going to happen.
Well, okay,
the
but the
Jedi Academy is going to get destroyed. So is Grogu being trained at the Jedi Academy and get killed by Kylo Ren? Like,
that's what I said. That's what I said on the last show. That's what I said is going to happen on the last show.
Yeah, and you said that, and I hate that idea. And,
why?
We don't
know, but we don't know, man. We don't know because he's already survived. What is it, Order 66 or whatever? Like Grogu's already survived when they tried to kill the Jedi the last time they hit him. He could fucking be hidden in this one. He could be hidden, and maybe he comes out later or something.
Yeah, and that's what I just don't like. I just don't like having a set, like even the continuity that ran, like the stories that run between. The real trilogy, like as we were saying, like between 4, 5, and 6, we knew what was going to happen, and even like at the time, like there was a real possibility that Han Solo was going to die. Like Harrison Ford didn't want to come back, and so they put him on ice, like literally in carbonite, right? So that back then it was still interesting in that way, and I guess I moved past a lot of these shows where the hero is going to survive. I'm a lot more interested in shows and like going back to like Game of Thrones. Have you watched British? I don't know why, for whatever reason.
Rob, okay, hold on. What you're saying is what's going to happen, and you don't like that. Now, I get that, but we've seen Luke Skywalker was kind of shit all over in the sequel trilogies, and then they went back and said, well, no, here's Luke's version of the story, and it was a lot better. Now we're going to actually see firsthand what happens. Yeah,
and but this is what goes back. So what I was saying was there's a lot of shows now where, I don't know, maybe they go too far in some of them. Like I was going to give the example of like, for some reason, British dramas, they just love killing off characters that you don't expect. But it makes things interesting because in real life,
they're not going to kill off characters that we're not going to kill off characters that we don't expect. We're going to know who's going to get killed off. We know Luke's going to survive.
But what the theory is, and you'll have this theory too if you watch that last season of Rebels, is it opens up this way to change the continuity in the same way that they did with Star Trek. Like there's an opportunity to make an alternate timeline, so all that stuff that I hated in the sequel trilogy doesn't happen. I don't know if that's the plan or not, but I hope it is, because you know how I feel about the sequel trilogy.
I do know how you feel about the sequel trilogy. To be honest, I don't expect that. I expect that they're going to stay true, but they're going to show us. Rob, listen, the biggest criticism of that sequel trilogy is Snoke came out of nowhere. Snoke has been around all that time. Well, now they're going to have an opportunity to show, hey, this is how Snoke came to be. This is where Snoke was when this was happening. We've had him around doing this or that or this or that. And, I'm not really that excited about Snoke as a character. I don't think he's a great character, but I am excited for them to do right by that storyline. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the patchwork. Fix things.
I don't like that at all, Adam. Like, I'd rather throw that. I don't know. I'm repeating myself, but I'd rather throw that sequel trilogy in the garbage. And I think there's an opportunity to do that because you're 20 years before. To me, I was talking to a friend and saying how like the sequel trilogy timeline is the Biff Tannen timeline of Back to the Future 2. And now they're 22 years before that, and this is their opportunity to set things right and not have grumpy man Luke. Like Luke Luke matured past that. That was the whole point of the previous trilogy. The Emperor's dead. Like that's done. Like there's no bringing back the Emperor. That was horrible. There's a lot of things where, and this is the problem people have with clones, right? Like we know from like a perfect example, how hated was the clone saga of Spider-Man.
Yeah, but okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Will you change your mind if somehow the Emperor makes an appearance in the next season?
So I guess I liked in the expanded universe, they had like it was clear the Emperor had all these backup plans, and he did have a clone and this and that, and I just feel like they jumped over a lot of the development in the sequel trilogy. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is
makes it wrong, but trying to fix it after the fact, I don't know. That's what I don't like. I don't want now they have to justify the stupid decisions they made in the sequel trilogy.
I agree.
And why, Adam? Why? Like the whole idea is movies like this is what I'm saying. We've moved past this. This is the old way of thinking that movies are up here and TV is way down here, and comic books are don't even count. They're toilet paper, they're garbage, they're rags, right?
Sure.
And now it's not like that anymore. Like
okay, but
The Mandalorian to me was better than I
agree. Better than the sequel trilogy, better than the prequel trilogy. The best thing to happen to Star Wars in decades. But what I'm saying is the people that made The Mandalorian were handed this prequel trilogy and they said, you're going towards this. Don't you at least give them credit for making it good, for doing the best they can with a shitty situation? I don't want to see them throw the baby out with the bathwater. We gotta set this course right. We gotta make this work. We gotta put in the work that the other guys didn't. The people doing The Mandalorian are doing the work that the sequel trilogies didn't do.
Yeah, so that's like saying, okay, so here's a book. The first chapters are awesome, but we hired terrible writer that wrote the last chapter. So now make all of it awesome. And I'm sorry, but that last chapter is written. No, it's not. That stuff could go, and it's all business decisions in the end. Now we talked about why Baby Yoda is to sell toys, and in the same way, when people see those billions of dollars that the sequel trilogy made, that looks good on paper, but it was a huge disappointment financially for Disney because Force Awakens was huge and it dwarfed the sales of the other two. It was way way ahead, and Force Awakens almost like it opened all these opportunities. It didn't solidify Rey had to be this person, Luke had to be like this. It basically it was like an introduction to the sequels, right? It introduced all these characters and set up all these possibilities that Rian Johnson, like, threw in the garbage, right? With Luke throwing away the lightsaber. So that's what I'm saying is I don't feel like that's has to be set in stone. They threw away continuity before. They threw away the expanded universe continuity, and they just, pick and choose. This counts and this doesn't. So why does the sequel trilogy have to count? And that's what a lot of people are saying, that there are ways that they could get around it. And within the canon of Star Wars Rebels shows a way that they can basically they pulled Ahsoka Tano out of being killed by Darth Vader. Like she was dead. And so now they just open this up that there's a way to pull people out and essentially change the timeline in a way. So what I'm excited for, I'm not excited at all for Snoke. I don't care, but I am excited for Thrawn. Thrawn is the best character. I would say maybe it's blasphemy, but Thrawn's better than even the Emperor because he's just so smart. He's a bad guy that you just love to hate in the same way, maybe you hate the Emperor, and the Emperor is smart in a lot of the same ways, but Thrawn is just like 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and it's just awesome to see Thrawn. I'm really excited for Thrawn to show up in Ahsoka Tano. That's what seems like it's going to happen, and Thrawn might be the big bad guy of Star Wars for the next few years.
So this is interesting. So the Thrawn trilogy, and Thrawn trilogy is what it is, right?
The book trilogy you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that took place in this period of time, right?
Yes, yeah, it happened after. There's basically this vacuum of power, right? And where after the Emperor's gone.
Okay, so what you're saying is this universe could build more, could be more loyal to those stories than to the movies that have been produced.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I feel like that's what really paid off from that Marvel did. They had they had continuity going back to 1962 or whatever you want to look at from the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, they could say. And, you could even say back to Captain America, right? And they picked and choose like which story, like they have that opportunity of hindsight to say like, hey, this story was really popular, the Infinity Gauntlet. Oh, Secret Wars, that was pretty cool. Everybody loved this one. Everybody loved this aspect of like Tony Stark's like alcoholism or whatever. That was a big plot point that they threw into Iron Man 2. And there was a lot of things they were able to do. And they have the exact same opportunity with Star Wars. Probably the second.
But this is the thing, Rob. How do I say it? It's too mainstream. The movies are too mainstream. They're in the public consciousness now. I get that fans of the Star Wars universe like yourself and maybe a little bit me that will bite on that and be happy that they do that. But to the casual fan, they're gonna almost reject the Mandalorian and say, well, that doesn't really count. If it goes against what the movies do, then the Mandalorian doesn't count.
Well, but I don't know. I guess you could say that, but it's just like we were saying, they decide what's canon based on the bottom line, the money. So if it turns out that, hey, like, are we going to make more money or less if we just build towards Snoke and everything that happened in the sequel trilogy, or are we going to make more if we keep it if we branch out in different ways? And that's what they did with Star Trek, right? Like Star Trek essentially rebooted because they went back and said, okay, well, what if this happened to Kirk and it made an alternate timeline? So there's a way for them to do that. There's a way to have their cake and eat it too in that way almost. And in the end, all people want is entertainment. Like people could do the what do you call it, the mental gymnastics to justify this or that, and we've been doing it forever. McClunky, right? Like they name dropped McClunky when I forget his name again with Boba Fett, when Boba Fett shows up, right? So they've gone back and changed things. Like they changed they made Han not shoot first, and
and when you say that, it's okay. This is the fandom that has been fucked with the most by the people that create it, that hold the power to change it.
Yeah, exactly. So they've done things like that angered the fans, and now to me, it just feels like the Mandalorian has been their way to make things right because they've made the fans happy with it. It's not all about fan service in the way that all your favorite characters have to survive. They were bold enough to kill off characters that were popular because it made a good story. And so I don't think that's what, to me, that fan service is when you're playing, like, it's almost like lip service to the fans, right? Like you want to just do these couple things to make them all happy and to buy tickets and buy Disney Plus subscriptions. But if you give the fans a good story, they'll forgive forgive a lot, and there's a way to make anything make sense like that, in terms of like continuity and why this person did that. There's like I was telling on the last episode we were talking about. There's a huge spreadsheet of what's happening at different points, and the other spreadsheet is figuring out like how much money is this going to make us by doing this or that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Rob. Well, I think we've said anything. Do you have anything else you want to add today? Anything else you wanted to go in?
I feel like we could talk about Luke forever, though.
Well, what do you want to say about Luke?
So what do you want to say about Luke? I don't know. It's just so awesome see Luke. See R2, right? We didn't even mention R2. So R2 shows up. He's still I don't know, he's flying around with Luke, so now we know like this is filling in like a huge part of the continuity this many years after Return of the Jedi. Luke's not at the Jedi Academy right now. He's off on his own. He got that call from Grogu on that stone, and he like dropped whatever he was doing, got in his X-wing and flew out there to the Outer Rim to pick him up. So I just feel like it opens up like what we're talking about.
And I feel like that confirms that they're going to stay true to the timeline of the movies, that he's going to start the Jedi Academy, that Kylo Ren is probably already in there or old enough to be starting training right about now.
Maybe. I guess it depends on how and there was a Jedi Academy in the expanded universe, so that was like the obvious thing. Okay, like let's, I guess it makes sense for if Luke is the only Jedi left, he wants there to be more Jedi, he's gonna keep it going. So it's obvious, I think, in any continuity that he would have a Jedi Academy. Maybe almost thinking like, hey, maybe in foresight, maybe you shouldn't follow the rules that the old Jedi used that made them like it really made the universe weaker, the way that the old Jedi, like, and this is kind of its own conversation, but there was a lot of mistakes, obviously, that the Jedi made that led to the Emperor, right?
Yeah.
And part of it was having a centralized academy that you could just show up and kill all the recruits, and every single Jedi in the universe is gone because they discouraged them from having offspring, right? Like the Jedi couldn't have kids. And so now you have a set amount of Jedi all in one temple on Coruscant. You blow that up, and then the universe is yours for the taking.
It's interesting. I'd be interested in seeing how Luke does end up training his Jedi, if he allows them to have more of a connection and emotional. He allows them to be a little more human. Yeah, more human. Yeah, exactly.
Like it's almost the same problem as the Mandalorian again, right? Like the Mandalorian had like, these are the rules. You wear this mask. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. Don't let your feelings cloud your judgment. Well, I'm sorry, but like, what's your feeling for the universe? It would be nice if there was an Alderaan. Like, is that just a feeling, or you know what I mean? So it doesn't make sense. These are like, I don't know. To me, like, it doesn't make sense in that sense that like emotion and compassion or whatever, that's what the Jedi are like. If there is justice, right, there's all those things, and you can't just look at things this is the rule for this and that's the rule for that. It doesn't you're just basically just another kind of Sith, right? You're dealing in absolutes again.
And I think that was what, and we're going to get into it, we're getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think that was a lot of what the prequel trilogy tried to show, is that the Jedi and Sith are not all that different, and they're a lot more similar than people realized before in the previous trilogy, or the forward trilogy, or whatever. The original trilogy, whatever. So Okay, so my theory, I don't know if you agree, is that we're going to see the Mandalorian go forward as a show about Mandalorians without Grogu in it at all. And do you think that he's going to stop by the Jedi Academy to see Grogu at times?
He might. There might be. It's really hard to imagine the Mandalorian without that. Without. Oh, I've remembered his name. Din Djarin. That's his name.
Din Djarin. Okay.
So Din Djarin and Grogu together, because that's just what the
That's what it's
Mandalorian's
been
been about.
mostly. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
like
know,
you were
but
saying, that humanized him. That made him not just like this faceless guy, like going around shooting.
So what do you
people.
think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do now that, like, we know Grogu's got to go train? Do they do a time skip? Do they do the show without him, or do they, like, does he just hang out at the Jedi Academy and go, wait a second, I'll just follow you?
Yeah, I don't know. And like, he did say like, I'm gonna see you again, obviously, and so that's, I don't know. And I guess we don't know all their plans,
No.
all Disney's plans, but really, like, so I guess the question is now, like, they knew Luke was going to show up. Like, Mark Hamill kind of confirmed that this was planned for like a year or whatever, and he was really proud that they managed to keep it under wraps with that terrible CGI Luke face we didn't talk about.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
basically, I've seen much better Lukes in like video games from like
yeah,
almost the PlayStation 2 era
yeah.
than that one. That was really bad. I've seen that. I think they're already fixing it. But anyway, that's another tangent. I guess the point is, they really, if they have Mark Hamill's blessing, I feel like they need to recast Luke, have a real actor be Luke. I feel like they're afraid to do it after what happened with Han Solo, but that's not why that Han Solo movie did crashed. It was because of The Last Jedi. That's what
I think that Han Solo movie just wasn't that good.
Well, yeah, it wasn't that good, but I just feel like the fans, if you're true to the character, it doesn't matter who the actor is.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And that's why people didn't like the old grumpy Luke Skywalker, and because it just didn't feel true to his character anymore. They just couldn't. And like you're saying, like they showed Luke's side and why he decided the best thing to do is to pull a lightsaber on his nephew and kill him in his sleep. Apparently, there's a way to justify that. I don't know.
But like I said, I'm hoping that they'll revisit that and give us a better answer. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, so my theory, not my theory, but my hope is that they decide, hey, like Luke's an awesome character. Maybe we shouldn't be afraid. They're not afraid to use him in other mediums. So maybe there's definitely room for like a CGI, like not a CGI, but like an animated series Luke. Like they have Luke in other series. So why not say, okay, like maybe it's worth another go to try and have a live action Luke. And Mark Hamill is on, like, that's the main thing. People love Mark Hamill. So if Mark Hamill's cool with it, then I think people are gonna, because Mark Hamill wasn't cool with The Last Jedi. You could see him in the interviews. You see his face just disgusted, right?
Yeah, well, he even said that he felt like he was playing a different character than Luke Skywalker. So this is not Luke Skywalker, but like this is what I'm being told to do.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened with that script, and I guess that it probably, maybe it was past the point of no return where he couldn't like back out of the movie when he saw how bad it was, because I feel like he doesn't.
I think if you're Mark Hamill and they're making a Star Wars movie, you go, like.
Yeah, I know, and he was telling the story how like in the 80s George Lucas was already telling them, yeah, I think we're gonna make the next round of movies in about 20 years, and Mark Hamill was like, oh, well, that's cool. 20 years from now? Yeah, I'll let you know. Like, I don't know what I'm doing next week, guy. Like, what are you talking about 20 years? Really, what I was saying previously, too, was that they should have made these, they should have made the post-Jedi episodes in, like, the 90s. And I don't know what the holdup was, but yeah, they missed out on a whole generation of kids, of, people that were just, hanging on every little background character from the original trilogy and making like a whole backstory behind them, when they could have been making, in my opinion, they could have been making like content like they're doing now. They could have been doing that in the 90s and, still being selective with it. It doesn't mean that you just throw everything into the, and see what sticks. But I don't know. I just think it was they're seeing what the difference has been with Marvel, where it's a well-crafted story, and they didn't have that with Star Wars in the sequel trilogy. So now I think this is their chance to fix it. And
What if I
yeah,
told you I thought the sequel trilogy was actually kind of well planned out?
I would say you're a liar, and I quit this show. I'm looking for the leave button here. No, like I don't, and to be honest, like I didn't love the prequel trilogy, but now I have a newfound respect for it. I'll tell you that.
Okay, let me lay this out for you. The first episode of the sequel trilogy, Rey struggles with her identity. She doesn't know who she is, right? The second one, they reveal that she's nobody. She's absolutely nobody. Her parents are insignificant. Her parents, I use that keyword, her parents are insignificant people. And the third one, they reveal that she's a Palpatine, and this character whose entire arc is about her struggling to find her own identity says, I'm not a Palpatine, I'm a Skywalker. So I do think they had a vision of what to do. And the reason I also think that is because Disney wants to make movies and media like they are right now that don't revolve around the Skywalker family. So having a character who is not a Skywalker say, yeah, I'm pretty much a Skywalker is the message that they want from a trilogy, from a saga that revolved around the Skywalker. They're transitioning from, hey, you guys have followed the Skywalkers, now let's get into non-Skywalker people with somebody who identifies as a Skywalker, even though they aren't.
Yeah, so I guess where that falls apart for me is in The Last Jedi. It's like The Last Jedi tried to do that, right?
Sure.
They were like, okay, Rey, you're nobody, and it shows like random, children with force powers that saying like anybody could be a Jedi. I was on board for that if it was done in the right way. Sure. I would have preferred if Rey was just somebody who the Force picked to be a counter to Kylo Ren, if that was because that's where Anakin came from, right? Like the idea is Anakin was the one. He came from out of nowhere. He was I think
many people believe that the Emperor created Anakin.
Yeah, there's that theory as well, that it's his, whatever you call it, whatever he did to the midichlorians, the M word, now they're calling it, they don't even say midichlorian, they called it the M factor or something in one of the M count. And so so that's a theory out there as well, but I don't know. So I just feel like they started to go that way with The Last Jedi, and that's why I feel like it was disconnected, because they reversed themselves in the third movie, right? And they said, oh wait, sorry, you're not nobody, you're Palpatine's granddaughter that nobody ever heard of. And then Palpatine, and like the other reason,
but that's worse. That's worse. That's going further in that direction rather than just being like, you could go like Skywalker. You're not a Skywalker, okay? And that's what the saga has been about, the Skywalker family. You're not a Skywalker. You're just nobody is the next step. But then they go even further. You're the antithesis of the Skywalker. You're the Emperor's. You're bloodline to the Emperor. You're so far that you can't even align with the Skywalker because you're a Palpatine.
But that was the whole purpose of why, like, the Skywalker name was already tarnished from Anakin. Like, Luke didn't. I don't even know if in the expanded universe that Luke wanted to tell anyone that he was Darth Vader's son. Like, Darth Vader killed like so many people, like countless, like Alderaan blown up, right? You could say, okay, it was Tarkin or whatever, but like there's, I don't know, like there's no, it's really hard and to justify these things. Like, can you imagine if somebody was like, oh yeah, I remember that Anakin, that Darth Vader? Yeah, well, I guess his son's a really nice guy. You remember Darth Vader blew up Alderaan? Well, like, water under the bridge. His son's a cool guy. He's with the rebellion. And so that wasn't how it worked, right? Like, there was like a secret, right? Like in, Princess Leia, nobody knew that her father was Darth Vader, just because it's like too hard to explain. So anyway, but my point is, the Skywalkers weren't all good, right? Anakin wasn't a good guy. He killed like so many people.
No, of course.
He basically he's the one that caused the Emperor to take power, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's not really you don't really have to say like, oh, Rey is the opposite. She's coming from the Palpatine line. I think it was already bad enough to come from being one of Anakin's offspring. The Skywalker line, yeah.
But the point is more from a marketing standpoint, I guess. I'm kind of speaking a little bit out of school here, but the idea that everyone's been brought up to think that Star Wars is about the Skywalkers, they went so far in the opposite direction that now when they have a show like The Mandalorian, they've conditioned the audience to say, it's not just a Skywalker show. It's about anyone now.
Yeah, and I could appreciate that. And you could, I don't know. I guess my problem is just they're almost like waffling with that in the sequel trilogy. Like you could make that point, but I feel like, I don't know. I almost feel like the first trilogy almost did that better with Luke, like turning out to be, randomly. He had no idea, but he was just supposed to be, a random kid in the first episode. Like he didn't know, and he turned out to be a Jedi or whatever. And it's the same thing going back to like the Marvel, that anybody could all of a sudden be a superhero or have powers. It's that whole concept in action movies, right? Where you want to picture yourself as the hero. So if you're going to do that, then you want the hero to be a common person you could identify with, not like a king and princess and whatever, like they are with, Princess Leia and the emperor's offspring. So that's why I feel like it's kind of trying to do both. And that's why I don't feel like it was a good story and it wasn't planned out, because of the way that Snoke was built up and killed off randomly, and the way that like the reveal that the Emperor was back, like we talked about this, like that was revealed on Fortnite. They revealed on a Fortnite stream that the Emperor was coming back for part 3. Like, isn't that something huge? If you had planned it out, maybe something in part 2 would have led to like, oh my God, do you think that means the Emperor's coming back? No, they're going to release it on Fortnite.
I definitely feel like the Emperor was, I don't know, man. That one felt like, where did that come from? I do remember reading Snoke's biography in the Force Awakens, or whatever the fuck it was, the first one. And I remember they specifically said he's someone who is hidden in the shadows, is very familiar with the Emperor, and has watched the Emperor's entire rise and fall, knows every single aspect of it. So for that reason, I think that they might have been thinking of this Emperor thing even that far back.
Yeah, I guess so. You could almost you could make that claim for a lot of characters and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that it wasn't a possibility. Like I just feel like the Force Awakens almost didn't. They kept their options open. They set up all these things. So hey, like, what do you think? Like, hey, next director, like, here are the possible threads. Like, is Rey going to be this person, that person, or that person? And Force Awakens was almost like Force Awakens was almost just like redoing A New Hope, right? In a lot of the plot points, and introducing those new characters that they could have taken different ways. And so I think it was definitely like a possibility. Everything that happened was one of the options. I just feel like they chose a bad option.
Yeah. To be honest, I felt a lot of the same ways that you did when I saw the movies. And I've sort of thought about them, and I thought, well, why would they do it that way? Why would they accomplish it that way? Maybe I'm doing mental gymnastics to sort of rationalize and give them the benefit of the doubt. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe they did have it planned all that way, and just the translation between directors, something got lost. I'm not really sure. Anyway, do you have anything else you want to say? We've been doing this for an hour. I think it's pretty much time to end. You said you wanted to say more about Luke. Do you have more to say? Or?
No, I think we said enough about Luke. Yeah, we covered it all. I think, this was really, really good. Like, we could talk all night about it, but that's what's so awesome about Star Wars. So maybe we'll have to do it again the next time they have one of those new series come out.
Well, that's the thing is this is the last episode, so I don't know what we're gonna do next, Rob. We're gonna have to figure something out for you.
You're gonna have to start watching Rebels, like Star Wars Rebels. You're gonna have to start watching those Clone Wars. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff to read. Hey, I could lend you some of my Star Wars books. You could read those, and We could talk about.
But they're no longer
History
canon, right?
Units.
Aren't they no longer canon?
Yeah, it's one of them especially. One of them was like an alternate plot for when it was still called Star Wars 2, and I have that book here, and it's terrible.
Terrible.
Don't read that one.
I probably won't read that. Yeah, yeah. I always
Let's be honest, Adam. You're not going to read any of these.
Well, I mean, if they're not relevant, I'm not going to. I always wanted to read the
Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah, I always wanted to read those as a kid, but I was too ADD as a kid. If they were relevant now, I would read them, but apparently they're no longer canon.
Well,
So
the same authors wrote a book called Thrawn that is canon now.
Oh.
So a lot of that inspired the stuff that is canon. But yeah, you're right. If you're really going to stick to, and that's what I was saying though. Really, like I'm not. You're almost being too absolutist, Adam. Where you're like, these are.
Well, I am a Sith.
You're a Sith. You're definitely being a Sith. Where you're like the canon stuff I'm going to enjoy. But whatever Disney now deems canon and not, again, based on profit motive, that shouldn't be determining how the content you consume. If you like something that's expanded universe, read it. And it's all our alternate universes. It's Marvel Ultimate Universe. It's Marvel this continuity. It's the same thing. That's how I like to look at it.
It's the alternate universes. All right. Well, I think that's a good way for us to end. Thanks for coming on the show, Rob. We're going to end the stream, and thanks to everybody for watching.